Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are looking at a specific slice of time that frankly looks less like a standard forecast and more like, well, like a hero's journey script.
It really does, and not just because it's a new month either. We are looking at what the source material describes as an era-defining shift.
Right. We're digging into a forecast that actually calls this period the fire of creation.
Yeah.
And I want to be super clear right off the bat. We aren't talking about, oh, you might find $5 on the sidewalk kind of astrology today.
No, definitely not.
We are talking about massive planetary ingresses that are going to reshape the landscape for the next decade, especially if you're a Sagittarius.
Exactly. The headline here isn't just a quick monthly transit, it's the movement of Saturn and Neptune into Aries.
Which is a huge deal.
It is, because that is the 0-degree point of the zodiac. It's the world axis. So for you, if you're a Sagittarius or have significant Sagittarius placements like your rising or moon, this isn't just a mood swing. It's a fundamental structural renovation of how you experience joy.
And that's exactly what we're here to unpack. We've got a stack of notes today on that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, the Mars transit through your own sign, and a pretty dramatic lunar eclipse.
There's a lot happening all at once.
Yeah, there is. And our mission today is to figure out how you handle being the action hero of the Zodiac right now without burning the entire set down.
Which is a highly valid concern when you look at the sheer amount of fire energy accumulating here.
So let's get right into the thick of it. The Aries ingress. Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries. Now, for a Sagittarius, Aries is the 5th house. And usually when people talk about the 5th house, it gets a bit...
Trivialized.
Yeah, exactly, trivialized. It's the party house.
Yeah.
Fun romance gambling, just having a good time.
Right, and that is the pop astrology definition of it. But if we want to really understand what's happening in March 2026, we have to look much deeper. The 5th house is actually the house of generative identity.
Generative identity.
Okay.
What does that mean in practice?
It's where you take the raw material of who you are and you push it out into the world to see what happens. It's the house of creative risk.
Creative risk. I like that better than just fun. It sounds higher stakes.
It is entirely higher stakes. It's the difference between just watching a movie and actually making one. It's where we birth things. Art, children, legacies. And now you have Saturn entering this exact space.
Which feels like a massive paradox to me. Because Saturn is the planet of restriction boundaries, time karma.
Yes, the great structurer.
Right, so putting the Lord of Discipline into the house of creative risk sounds like, well, it sounds like having a compliance officer sit in on your brainstorming session. Does this just kill the vibe?
That is always the fear, isn't it? That Saturn will just dry up all the fun. But the astrological logic presented here suggests something entirely different.
Okay, how so?
Saturn doesn't want to stop the creation. It wants to materialize it. Think about the difference between a creative person who has a million ideas but never finishes a single one.
Oh, I know plenty of those.
Right? We all do. Compare that to the master who actually produces a cohesive body of work. Saturn turns the spark into the stone.
So it's really the transition from amateur to professional.
Precisely. If you've been dabbling in a hobby, Saturn in the 5th house essentially asks, are you going to get good at this or are you just wasting time? It demands mastery. It's about taking your joy seriously.
Serious joy. That's actually a phrase that popped up constantly in the research for this deep dive, which again sounds like an oxymoron.
It does on the surface, but think about the most fulfilling things you've ever done in your life. Raising a child, writing a book, training for a marathon. Were those things fun in a frivolous way?
Probably not. They were exhausting.
Exactly. They were hard. They required massive discipline, but they provided a depth of satisfaction that a random night out at a bar never could. That deep satisfaction is Saturn in the 5th house.
Okay, so Saturn provides the container, but he's not walking into Aries alone. He's walking in with Neptune. And Neptune is the solvent to Saturn's stone.
Beautifully put.
Thanks. I mean, Neptune is dream's illusion. The spiritual, the totally intangible stuff.
And this is where it gets incredibly fascinating. You have the great structurer Saturn and the great dissolver Neptune meeting in the exact same house of creativity.
That sounds chaotic.
If you don't manage the balance, it can be very confusing. You might feel like you're trying to build a castle on a cloud.
Or maybe like you have this massive vision from Neptune, but you feel completely crushed by the weight of the work Saturn requires to actually achieve it.
That's the exact tension. But the synthesis here, and this is the core of that fire of creation concept, is that Neptune provides the vision and Saturn provides the latter.
I see. So they actually need each other.
Completely. Without Neptune, Saturn's work is dry and soulless. It's just bureaucracy. But without Saturn, Neptune's vision is just a hallucination. It never becomes real.
So for you listening right now, March 2026 is really the time to ask, what is the dream that is big enough to demand my discipline?
Exactly. And because this is happening in Aries, which is a fire sign and highly supportive to Sagittarius, this isn't a passive philosophical question. Aries initiates. This is about actively starting the great work.
Let's pivot to the romance aspect of the fifth house, though, because honestly, that's usually what people really want to know about.
Naturally.
With Saturn and Neptune there, does this serious joy concept apply to dating too?
Absolutely, it does. Saturn in the fifth house often signals the definitive end of situationships. You just lose patience for the ambiguous.
You want something real.
Yes, you want something with architectural integrity, a relationship that can actually withstand a storm.
But then Neptune throws in that whole soulmate energy, doesn't it?
It does. Neptune creates this deep longing for a spiritual connection, a divine union almost. So you end up with this dual drive. You want a profound soul-level connection for the Neptune side, but you also want a partner who pays their taxes and shows up on time for the Saturn side.
Which honestly is the absolute dream.
It is the dream. But the catch is it requires you to be that person too. You can't just be the freewheeling, impulsive Sagittarius anymore. You have to be the architect of your own romance.
Speaking of freewheeling, we have to talk about the fuel tank.
Yeah.
Because while Saturn and Neptune are doing this high-level architectural work in the fifth house, there is something much more visceral happening over in the first house.
Yes. Mars is in Sagittarius.
Right. And we cannot overstate how different this energy feels compared to the Saturn stuff. The first house is the body, the identity, the I am.
And Mars is the planet of severance, action, heat speed. When Mars is in your sign, you aren't just thinking about doing things, you are physically vibrating with the need to do them immediately.
The notes from the forecast describe this as the action hero archetype, which fits Sagittarius pretty well anyway, you know, the archer, the centaur, galloping around. But Mars cranks that up to 11.
It does. It gives you an immense amount of charisma and drive. You walk into a room and people just notice. You have this undeniable protagonist energy.
But the physics of this seem really tricky.
Very tricky. You have Mars in your first house screaming, "Go now, now," and Saturn in your fifth house saying, "Build slowly."
That sounds like a total recipe for frustration, like slamming on the gas pedal while the parking brake is still engaged.
It really can be. And if you aren't conscious of it, that friction manifests physically as inflammation, irritability, or just being incredibly blunt with people.
And Sagittarius is already pretty prone to honesty without a filter.
Exactly. Add the stress of Saturn to that natural bluntness, and you might find yourself snapping at people just because they're moving too slowly for your liking.
So how do you manage that? If I'm feeling this massive surge of adrenaline, but my actual projects require slow, steady work, where does all that excess energy go?
You have to give Mars a job that doesn't destroy your life. Physical exertion is completely non-negotiable here. You cannot sit at a desk for 12 hours with Mars in the first house.
You'd have to literally burn the cortisol.
Yes. Run, lift, dance, martial arts, whatever, moves that intense energy out of your physical body.
So the overall strategy is let Mars handle the physical movement and let Saturn handle the career and creative strategy. Do not mix them up.
Precisely. Don't try to sprint your way through a 5-year business plan. And definitely don't use your Mars energy to blow up your relationships just because you're bored or feeling impatient.
The action hero needs a script, or else he's just a guy breaking furniture.
Just a guy breaking furniture, that is a fantastic image.
We want to be Indiana Jones, not the Hulk smashing up the lab.
Right. And there's a specific danger here that the source warns about called over-identification.
What does that mean in this context?
With Mars in the first house, you identify very strongly with your actions. So if someone criticizes your work, and Saturn might invite some criticism as you strive for mastery, you might take it as a physical attack.
Oh, wow. So you have to separate your ego from the actual process of building.
Correct. Just because you're building something serious doesn't mean you have to be defensive about it.
That's a really crucial distinction to make. And interestingly, while all this fire is blazing away with Mars and Sag and Saturn and Neptune and Aries, there is a completely different elemental process happening in the background.
Yes, it acts as a much-needed counterweight. We have the eclipse cycle and the Pisces influence.
Let's talk about the hardware versus the software here. If Mars and Saturn are the engine and the chassis, the eclipse seems like the operating system update. We have a lunar eclipse in Leo on March 3rd.
And for Sagittarius, Leo rules the ninth house. This is the house of the quest. It's actually the natural home of Sagittarius. It governs philosophy, higher education, long-distance travel, and your core belief systems.
So an eclipse in your own natural house, that sounds incredibly significant.
It is profound. Lunar eclipses represent endings. They are culminations. They shut doors. So occurring in the ninth house, this signals a crisis of faith or perhaps a graduation of sorts.
Like actually finishing a degree or coming back from a massive trip.
Yes, or more likely internally realizing that a philosophy you used to live your life by just doesn't fit the new you anymore.
This connects right back to the Mars action hero idea, doesn't it? If you are actively upgrading your avatar to this high-performance version, you simply can't run the old software.
Exactly. You might have had a core belief system that said, I'm just a wanderer. I don't need roots. I don't need structure.
Which is a very classic old-school Sagittarius belief.
It is. But with Saturn in the fifth house now demanding a legacy, that old belief is officially obsolete. The eclipse forces you to shed the philosophy that keeps you small or scattered.
So it's a philosophical shedding, saying, I'm no longer the student, I am becoming the teacher.
Yes. Eclipses in the ninth house very often mark that exact transition from gathering knowledge to actually applying wisdom. It's the moment you stop just reading the self-help books and start living the principles.
But that is deeply uncomfortable. Changing your worldview is honestly harder than changing your job or your city.
It is incredibly uncomfortable. It can feel a bit like losing your religion. But it is necessary space clearing. You cannot build the Saturnian legacy if you are still clinging to a worldview that prioritizes a total lack of responsibility.
And while this high-level philosophical crisis is happening, we also have the sun in Pisces in the fourth house. Now, the fourth house is the complete opposite of the 10th house of career, right? It's the very bottom of the chart.
It is the basement, the roots, the inner sanctuary.
And with the sun there, illuminating those deep waters of Pisces, there is a real spotlight on your emotional foundation.
I always picture the fourth house as the place you go to finally take your armor off.
That is the perfect analogy. And remember, with Mars in the first house, you are wearing very heavy armor all day long. You are out there conquering.
So the fourth house becomes absolutely critical for recovery.
It does. If your home life is chaotic, or if your emotional boundaries are leaky, which Pisces energy can sometimes cause, you will simply burn out. You need a sanctuary.
So practically speaking, this March isn't just about go, go, go. It's also about ensuring you have a quiet, dark room to collapse in at the end of the day.
It's about intentional retreat. The sun in the fourth house suggests that your public victories driven by Mars are entirely dependent on your private peace illuminated by the sun, meaning you might have to step back from some things.
Yes, you might find yourself really needing to withdraw from family drama or setting much clearer boundaries at home just so that you have the raw energy for that fifth house creativity.
It seems like there is a massive systems check happening across the entire board. You've got the first house for the body, the fifth house for creativity, the ninth house for beliefs, and the fourth house for home. It's a full spectrum upgrade.
It is, and that's exactly why the Fire of Creation title is so apt for this month. Fire transforms. It consumes the old wood to create new heat and light.
You are literally burning up the old version of your life.
Yes, the old beliefs from the eclipse, the old lack of discipline being consumed by Saturn, and the old passivity being burned away by Mars, all to fuel this entirely new creation.
But fire is also dangerous. We keep coming back to this core tension between the energy you have and the structure you need.
That is the central conflict of the month, speed versus structure. Mars wants to sprint, but Saturn wants to build a cathedral, and you cannot sprint a cathedral into existence.
I love that phrase. You cannot sprint a cathedral into existence. So you really have to become a hybrid creature this month. Part racehorse, part stonemason.
And part mystic, thanks to Neptune's influence.
Right. We definitely can't forget the mystic. That is a lot of different hats to wear at once.
It is. But remember, Sagittarius is a mutable sign. They are inherently adaptable. If any sign in the zodiac can handle holding multiple contradictory truths at once, it is Sagittarius.
So let's try to synthesize all of this for you, standing at the precipice of March 2026. What is the practical takeaway here? How do you actually navigate the day-to-day?
I think the key is to clearly separate the urge from the action. When you feel that sudden Mars urge to do something rash, just pause. Ask yourself, does this action serve the Saturnian legacy I am actively building?
So it comes down to impulse control.
Strategic impulse control. Use the Mars energy to fuel the work, not to distract from it. If you want to write that book, use the Mars aggression to attack the blank page, not your spouse or your boss.
And regarding the eclipse and the shifting belief systems,
Be willing to be wrong. Be willing to let go of a truth you've held onto for a long time if it no longer serves the person you are becoming. The eclipse is going to take it away regardless, so you might as well surrender it gracefully.
The forecast material actually provided a specific affirmation for this period, and I think it really nails this unique blend of fire and focus. It says, I manifest my joy with purpose, my energy is focused, my heart is open, and I am the creator of my own destiny.
Joy with purpose. That really is the headline for the whole month. It's no longer just joy by accident or joy on the weekends. It is joy as a true vocation.
It's incredibly empowering, but it also puts the responsibility squarely on you. The planets aren't doing the work for you. They're just providing the tool.
Exactly. Mars gives you the hammer, Saturn gives you the blueprint, and Neptune gives you the inspiration. But you have to be the one to swing the hammer.
And you have to remember that this is a long game. We mentioned at the very top of the show that this reshapes the definition of happiness for the next decade.
Yes, it does. Saturn will be in Aries for roughly 2.5 years. Neptune will be there for 14 years. This is not a flash-in-the-pan moment. March 2026 is just the groundbreaking ceremony.
You are just laying the cornerstone right now.
Exactly. So don't panic if the entire building isn't finished by March 31st.
That's a huge relief. Because with Mars so heavily involved, I think the natural tendency is to want everything done yesterday.
That is the trap. Mars says now, but Saturn says time. You have to respect time.
Respecting time is not exactly a classic Sagittarius superpower.
No, it really isn't. Which is why this transit is so intensely developmental for them. It is teaching them the one thing they usually try to avoid, which is patience. And not passive patience, active, constructive patience.
Active patience. I'm actually going to write that down for myself.
It's the absolute secret to the action hero surviving the end of the movie.
Well, it sounds like you have a massive month ahead. It's rare, it's fiery, and it's highly demanding. Sure. But it also sounds like exactly the kind of challenge you actually enjoy. You don't like being bored. And March 2026 definitely does not look boring.
It's anything but boring. It is the fire of creation.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over today. Something that bridges that gap we've been talking about between the fun fifth house and the serious Saturn influence. We've talked a lot about turning hobbies into legacies.
Yes, we have.
So here is the provocation for you to take away. Look at the things you do purely for distraction right now. The mindless scrolling, the gaming, the casual doodles on your notepad. If you had to treat one of those things with the seriousness of a CEO running a company, what would happen?
That is a terrifying question, honestly.
It is. But what if your distraction is actually your destiny in disguise, just waiting for you to apply some Saturnian discipline to it? What if the very thing you're wasting time on is actually the thing you should be building?
That completely changes the whole perspective on wasting time.
It really does. Maybe it's finally time to stop playing and start building. Good luck out there, action heroes. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.